is Wes Chun, one of the best speakers that I think that we've had over the years. So happy to have him back, talking about what is serverless. And I'm spacing on the, what is serverless? Dot, dot, dot. What do y'all think serverless is?
Someone else's server.
Someone else's server? Pretty good. What else?
Phone and maybe hook it into something.
Any other ideas what serverless is?
On-demand infrastructure.
Something running on your own. Something running on your own home computer without having it on the cloud or something. Having something on.
Oh, not having a server. I like it. Yeah. This is good.
No hosting.
No hosting? All right. These are all good ideas. We're going to find out part of what is serverless. And what is technology challenges?
As they work on that, just one thing to say about Wes. Wes is a former Googler. Wes is an author. Wes wrote a book on Python. Wes has been doing all kinds of neat stuff for a long time, and we're really glad that he was willing to fly from California out here to Minnesota to brave the cold yesterday.
Famous YouTuber.
Yeah, and he's on YouTube.
Or maybe still currently a famous YouTuber. But we'll find out more about Wes here as he talks about what is serverless.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I think they're overselling me, so. The other thing before we get started is I have to prove that I was here, or else Google's not going to sponsor me showing up. Everybody smile and look like you're learning something. Whoa, this room is so big, I don't think I can take a panoramic that gets everybody. I definitely can't selfie everybody, too. All right, awesome. So that's a great start. Okay, so you guys are going to hear a lot about AI today. So I'm going to try and not talk about AI. That's a good news. But they're still not going to sponsor me unless I say something about AI. So today I'm getting it. All right, the bad news is I'm going to try and cram 76 slides down your throats in about half an hour. So let's give it a shot and see how well you guys do afterwards. Now, if you're dizzy and you need another bagel or coffee afterwards, then I did my job. All right, so let's get going here. So I'm going to talk about serverless and then its relationship with AI and all that kind of stuff, just because it's very interesting. And the reason why genAI agents and things like that are kind of grayed out is because you can do serverless without anything AI. It could be just regular web apps or mobile backends, so you're not limited, right? You're just adding on to what can do, what can't do. All right. Okay, so they already. I don't even need to talk about myself since they already did it, but Jeff is correct. I'm a software developer, but I also have been teaching for longer than I've been an engineer. I've also written a couple of things about Python, just because when I learned Python, there were only 2 books on the market, and neither of them met my needs, and I just was impatient. I couldn't wait anymore, and I just wrote my own. I don't, no, actually there may be a few videos here, but anytime you see like a blue box, like what you see on the screen, that means I made some kind of video content on it, but there's not going to be a lot. I don't think my laser's going to work on the screen, so maybe up there. Okay, so I am an AI TPM at Red Hat, so I'm actually focused on open source AI projects, especially in use with GCP projects. As well as Google tools and things like that, because I was at Google for like 13 plus years, so I have a lot of Google APIs in my head, and so this talk came from the work that I did when I was on the serverless team. All right, so before we get to talking about that, when I say I'm from Red Hat, people think, oh, Red Hat, isn't that a Linux company? So now I have to say something about Red Hat, because sometimes they also sponsor me. Especially since they're my employer. So many years ago, everybody remember Linux?
Yeah.
It's free and open source, right? And then large companies like, oh, we don't take anything free seriously. If you're not, CTOs are like, if you're not having me write a 5, 6, 7-digit check, I'm not going to take you seriously. So guess what Red Hat did? They took the free open source Linux and they wrapped it with extra testing, compliance, tech support, and all that kind of stuff, charging a lot of money. That's how I get my salary. And so basically they built an enterprise version of the open source software. So fast forward to today, in the world of AI, same thing's going on. All of our customers are like, oh, we're supposed to be doing something with AI now, what do we do? So Red Hat's following the same model. We take all the well-known open source AI communities and we wrap that into enterprise versions. So that's kind of like our line of business now. And Red Hat is growing pretty rapidly in the AI space. We've actually, we got acquired, I don't know if anybody knows, but we got acquired by IBM about 7 years ago. And now we're actually stealing their AI people. So we have a large and growing AI team. And I'm part of that. Okay, so the reason why I'm saying that is, again, these are some of the key open source projects. If you haven't run across like VLLM yet, you will, because if your company is doing any kind of inference serving, you're probably going to be using VLLM under the covers. And it's open source, and what a lot of people don't know is that most of the contributions actually come from Red Hat. So even, and for example, LlamaStack was started by Meta, but we are also a large contributor to LlamaStack. And then LLMD was a joint effort between Red Hat, Google, and NVIDIA, and a couple of other companies on basically scaling out and making a distributed version of VLLM. So all these big open source projects are part of the ecosystem, even though they don't have any kind of Red Hat branding, because that's what we do. We take open source stuff and we basically build enterprise versions of it. So here's VLLM. Again, if you're not familiar with it, you can run any open model on top of it, and you can run it on top of any hardware, as well as on-prem, in the cloud, on the edge, and things like that. So that's VLLM. LLMD spreads that out even further. So if you have a whole bunch of VLLMs running, and now you want a distributed version running on Kubernetes, that's LLMD. And then LlamaStack basically is an API surface level, so whatever you're building with AI, you could probably have one common API interface so that you can swap everything out in the back. So you can have different evals, you can have different telemetry, you can have different vector DBs, and all of it, you can keep your code the same because it gives you one common API surface. So anyway, so that's that. And then, of course, these things turn into enterprise products. So yes, there's an enterprise version of VLLM in that, and then there's an enterprise version of the other two in that. So Red Hat's just continuing to do what we did with Linux, but now with AI. All right, but this talk is, all right, so, and then the last thing is there's a large ecosystem. Google Cloud's in there as well too. So we're kind of like everywhere. And then on top of that, if you guys want to use open models because you don't trust large proprietary ones, we basically provide validated versions of the open models, and we also have like specially compressed versions that are optimized for speed, using fewer resources, responding in a faster amount of time. So that's on Hugging Face, so check that out as well too. But this talk is not about Red Hat. I just wanted to give you an idea, because when people come to me afterwards and they tell me, I thought Red Hat was a Linux company. And so I just want to show you that we're not anymore. All right, so why are you here? Mostly talking about app modernization and serverless. You know, you're always trying to containerize your apps, get them on VMs, and then eventually move to the cloud. So Google can give you lots of VMs and big disks, but why should you consider serverless? And then just to basically get you up to date with what's going on, so that you realize you don't always have to have a VM. Okay? So that's the main idea. So between the intro and the summary, quick intro to Google Cloud, talk about the serverless platforms, give you some inspiration, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay, so really quick review just to get everybody on the same page, because people come with different backgrounds, different levels, so I'm just going to start all the way back at the beginning with cloud computing. So what do you need to know about cloud computing that you don't already know? So cloud computing is basically what? I think somebody already said it. You're using somebody else's computer, so you don't have to buy it, because guess what? If you're buying it, it's obsolete by the time it arrives at your shipping dock. All right? You don't want to have to like maintain that by yourself as a company all the time, right? So you're going to outsource your hardware, you're going to outsource your storage, you're going to outsource your applications, and probably the most well-known one is email, because when the internet came around in like the 1990s, you know, I don't think you wanted to give grandma SMTP, you know, a server on her desk and things like that, right? So there's IMAP, there was POP, so that we don't have to have a mail server running on our computers 24/7. So I've outsourced my email service to, you know, Yahoo with Yahoo Mail, or Google with Gmail, you know, or Microsoft with Hotmail. We are choosing to outsource our email service to a cloud vendor, all right? Why do I bring up email? Because that's part of a class of apps known as SaaS, all right? So anytime you have to go online or pull up a mobile app and log into something, that is a SaaS app. That's an application running in the cloud because you've outsourced your email service or you've outsourced your office productivity tools and things like that, all right? So that's outsourcing of applications. You can also outsource hardware. So this is, everybody knows these are VMs, right? With a virtual machine, I have to go and buy something. I can rent an EC2 instance from AWS or Compute Engine from Google. I can get big disk as well too. So I'm outsourcing hardware, that's infrastructure as a service. And then a happy medium is, well, you know, the thing is, in order for me to get an app running on a VM, I have to also install operating system, database, a web server, all these things. What if I'm just an app writer and I don't want to worry about that stuff? I just want to upload some code and have it run. So that's what platform as a service is, and that's where most of the focus of today's session comes in. Okay, so yeah, and then sometimes, you know, because you're in a large ecosystem, what happens is there's a lot of gray area in between. So in between infrastructure and PaaS, we have things that are more than hardware, okay, but they're not quite a platform you can upload code to and run, right? So you're going to find all of your AI services here, your databases, data processing, data analytics. You're going to find networking stuff here as well too. All right, so all of those things are here in this gray area. Some people call it data as a service, but it's more than that because, like I said, it includes AI, it includes containers and things like that. In between platform as a service and SaaS, there's what there's no real term for it, I'm just making it up. I call it restricted PaaS systems. All right, so these are like PaaS, except the one big difference is that unlike their cousins, right? You can learn more about that transition at the links down below, as well as comparing the products. Okay, and then so the merged version, which is Cloud Run Functions. Again, very, very similar. Almost everything is identical, just a few things have changed. Okay, cool. Now, so what is Cloud Run? Cloud Run is serverless 2.0. This is definitely the latest platform. And the reason why it's needed is because from the time that App Engine launched, containers have taken over, right, as the main shopping bag that you ship all your apps with. There's no restrictions. Like with App Engine and Cloud Functions, you have to use these languages that we tell you. But in a container, you can use any language you want. You can use C, right? So it doesn't have those restrictions, and so that's why containers became very, very popular, right? And then Docker's kind of like had taken over the world between 2010 and 2017, right? So if they're very, very popular, they're very, very flexible. Serverless was not as flexible, okay? So the thing is, if I want to do serverless, do I support language X, Y, Z? Or what if I want to use a binary? That's restricted from serverless, right, because of the security. But we can't be locked in. I don't want to have to, write everything using App Engine API and be stuck there. Why do I have to choose between the flexibility that I get from containers versus the convenience I get from serverless, where I can just sit back and just like run a deploy command and just armchair DevOps it, right? I want the best of both worlds. And so that's why Google launched Cloud Run, because it is containers. You can use any language, any library, any binary. The only thing Google asks is that you leave an HTTP port open and your app has to be stateless. So don't bundle it with a database, right? Use a cloud-based database, because if you access one Cloud Run instance on your app on one instance, and then the next time you send traffic to your app, it goes to another instance, you're going to be in trouble if they have their own databases, right? So you want to have a cloud-based database that all of the instances can talk to. All right, so that's the one restriction that you have to change in your app. Okay, but then you build your container. You can use Docker if you're familiar with it. You don't have to. You can just use Cloud Build because it wraps Docker under the covers. It goes into the registry, and then you can deploy to Cloud Run. Everything is great. You can also do GitOps. You can do CD push deploy. So when you do a git commit and a git push, it'll automatically start kicking off the process of building a container and deploying it. You can also do CI with CD if you use a tool like GitHub Actions, where you can run, on git commit, it'll start running the tests and stuff, and then you can deploy from there. Okay, so that's that. All right. Let's see. So okay, so your Hello World, very similar, one-liner. All the languages basically, but they only have demos for like 10 in the docs because they can't document everything. Here's an Express one if you're a node person. That was fast API, by the way. And then when you deploy, Docker file, Docker ignore, but the best part is you don't have to have those. They're optional, okay? Or at least the Docker file is optional. Docker ignore you should always have, no matter what, because it has the concept of build packs where a lot of people, love the idea of containers, but I don't want to learn Docker, I don't want to maintain a Docker file. So that's what build packs is for. It basically analyzes your code and automatically builds a dynamic Docker file for you. And so you can see I have a Node app and a Python app, and the command line is the same, right? So that's the cool thing about Cloud Run. All right, and then there's a lot of new features. Of course, the most important one is that you can get GPUs now with Cloud Run, so you can do all your AI workloads. All right, the last serverless runtime is AppScript. So this is basically something completely different. It is serverless, but it's completely different. So imagine I want to create, this is a one-line application, by the way. I want to talk to Google Sheets. I want to grab the sheet. I want to put something in cell A1, okay? And then here it is. Now that looks boring, right? But if you realize that you actually wrote code to make this happen instead of you sitting there and typing it in, that becomes more exciting, right? Yeah, I made a couple of videos on AppScript actually. All right, but that's not a real app. What if I want to do something real? Like, this is real data I have in a spreadsheet, right? It's an address. It's in cell A2. What can I do with this? Well, I'm going to blow up that app and make it a 400% increase. This is a 4-line application, all right? It happens to touch 3 different Google products. I'm going to connect to Google Sheets. I'm going to grab what's in cell A2. I'm going to tell Google Maps, hey, make me a map. And then I'm going to tell Gmail, hey, send this map to my friends so I can meet them at the Google office in New York for lunch, or something like that, right? So that's more useful, but it's only 4 lines of code, right? By the way, it's addictive, so be careful. Once you start using AppScript, it's like drugs. You'll want to keep on coming back to it over and over again. So taking this, what can I do with this? Well, maybe I run a book club or a user group, or maybe I have a sales team that wants to visit our top 4 customers in New York. All right, and I want to send email reminders. I want to put something in Google Calendar so they can see when DevFest is. I want to send out email reminders automatically as the date gets closer. Right, all these things can be done with AppScript. You start with those 4 lines, and then you can build out a real app behind that. Okay, so that's AppScript. Those are the 4 serverless platforms available from Google. Well, now it's 3 because Cloud Functions got rolled into Cloud Run, so now it's Cloud Run Functions. So 3. All right. So what about AI? Because we have to talk about AI, otherwise I can't be here. All right. So last year I wrote this very basic genAI web app that uses the Gemini API. I don't think I have time to do a demo, but you can take a look at the blog post and the code. But all it does is ask you to upload a picture and for you to give a prompt to the LLM. So my prompt is just describe this image, and then it's supposed to tell me something about it. Okay. Yeah. So I have it in Express and Fast API, Flask. All right. So it's just a generic web app that uses the Gemini API, but that still counts. That's AI, right? So yeah. So basically, it's very boring looking because it's just a hello world, right? Upload the image. Give a prompt to the LLM. I gave a default for describe this image, but you can change it if you want. And then you go and pick whatever image you have on your disk, and then now it's all set. I changed the prompt for this particular one. I said, where is this and what is it? You can't see the is it because the text field is cut off. And then it tells you, right? So that's basically how this app works. Now, that is completely not related to serverless, right? That was just a regular web app running on Express, Fast API, or Flask on my desktop. On my laptop, all right? Not online. Probably the most important part, I should show some code, the most important part is taking the image, making a thumbnail out of it, so that's that chunk. And then the rest of it is all magic, right? The magic is, what's my model, what's the prompt, where's my image, and then please call Gemini to give me a result, and then turn the markdown into HTML. Those are the most important parts, and then render the template. So this is actually the core part of it. It's a pretty short app. I think it's only it's less than 200 lines of code, so it's very, very small. Okay. But guess what? If I add a few files, I can make it run on App Engine or on Cloud Run with no change of code, right? So you just have to outfit your app in a way that you can make this happen, but it's definitely possible. All right, and these are the files that are basically highlighted all right? So I added a Docker ignore, I added a gcloud ignores to not upload certain files that are not necessary, like the README. Why should I build that into my container? The README is not going to be executed, right? And then I have a Docker file if I want one, but if I don't want to do Docker, like I don't want to learn Docker, I don't want to manage a Docker file, all you need to do is upload a proc file, which basically has the instructions on how to start your app. That way, it will make a Docker file for you, and it will look at the proc file on how to start your app. Okay, that's it. You can run it on App Engine if you have an app.yaml, which is kind of like a Docker file or a proc file, and that's it. You can actually run it on both if you want. Okay. Yeah, so what other things can you run on Cloud Run? So if you go and start learning how to build agents using the Google's ADK or Agent Development Kit, guess what? You can write an agent, and then you can also deploy that to Cloud Run. They even have a page on how to do that. You can also run inference. If you're hardcore and you just want to serve models using Cloud Run, you can do that too, because now you have GPUs. Okay. And then, of course, there's also MCP. That's another thing you can run on Cloud Run, but I'm not going to talk about that. So you have to go to Isaac. Is Isaac's here? Okay. Isaac's giving a talk on how to run an MCP server on Cloud Run later today. Hopefully I didn't spoil the surprise, right?
That's dramatic foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, so I left out all my MCP slides on purpose. All right, let's wrap up. So what have we learned today? Oh, by the way, before we completely wrap up, when you're writing with serverless on serverless platforms that do auto scaling, okay, so it's not AppScript. So AppScript, you can tell, is very workspace focused, right? Its primary reason is not performance. It's basically functionality and connectivity, because instead of using APIs, you notice that I connected to Google Sheets, Gmail, and Google Maps just with an object call, right? So there was no API calls there. So that's another magical thing that AppScript provides. It provides a lot of magic, so it doesn't do auto scaling. Okay, so we're talking about just the GCP stuff, so App Engine and Cloud Run. If you're writing again on those platforms, apps for those platforms, you have to remember that latency is very important, because it wants to auto scale for you. So your app has to respond as fast as possible, and Google recommends under 100 millisecond response. All right, so the faster you respond, the faster it will auto scale for you. But if you're slow, the auto scaler would deliberately throttle you because your app is too slow, right? So make sure it's fast. Also, for architecture, make sure you break up large, monolithic components into small microservices, because then things will work faster. Each one being, having low latency. All right. And so the more you uncouple stuff that have state, the better. Move again, like don't have a built-in database. Use a cloud-based database. Use PubSub or Kafka or some other kind of message queue that can handle large fan in and fan out and things like that. Okay. All right. So which do you choose out of all these things? Most of the time, you're probably going to pick Cloud Run. Why? It's the most modern platform. It can do various types of AI and agentic workloads because it has GPUs. It really is the next generation of App Engine. All right, and now that they've rolled in Cloud Functions, you can do the small stuff with it as well too. All right, App Engine is still there. It's the OG. All right, most likely you won't use it for new stuff, but you can still do things that Cloud Run cannot. Like it comes with a built-in database, a built-in memcache, built-in edge caching, built-in this, built-in that, and it's outbound network traffic is much cheaper. So those are some of the few things that App Engine can still do that that Cloud Run can't, but there's not that many more. All right, you really should be using Cloud Run most of the time. And then if you are writing something that you want to have tight integration with Workspace because you're automating the back office, or if you want to talk to other Google services or even external services with JDBC, you can talk to relational databases, or you can talk to external services with HTTP, which means you can also call the genAI API from AppScript as well, then maybe that's the right serverless tool for you. Okay? All right, that is it. So what is the cost? App Engine, Cloud Run, and Cloud Functions have a pretty generous free tier, all right? If you are a student or faculty member, you can actually give your students and your TAs and your researchers access to cloud credits. So look up this link if you're a faculty member. If you're a student, you have to pester your professors to do this because Google doesn't give student credits unless you're participating in a hackathon, all right? Otherwise, you can only get credits through your profs, all right? I don't have time to talk about the free tier and the free trial, but most of the time, all serverless tools have this always free tier. I would avoid using the free trial until you actually know what you want to run with it, and especially as a student, don't do it because you need a credit card. But with the student grants and the professor grants, there's no credit card needed, so I recommend that until you graduate. Okay, summary. Cloud computing is everywhere. Really, you should think about serverless because you don't have to be a DevOps person. That's the big thing. You just focus on the solution you're trying to build and getting it to the world. Okay? And there's a whole bunch of links. And bring me to your company if you enjoy these tech talks. I'm happy to do this. I have a consulting business at home, and I do this on nights and weekends, and sometimes if it's important enough, I'll take time off of work to help you out with your Google needs. So just reach out. Otherwise, here are some links. You just take a picture of this one. I will provide the slides to Jeff and the organizers here so you can get it. The slides here are from a previous version of the talk where I had less AI and more serverless. So in case you want that, I made a bunch of videos as well too. So anyway, so these are all the things that you need except for the slide deck for today's talk, which again I will make available to the organizers so you'll have access to that too. All right, but thank you very much.